Well, good morning, everybody, or at least it's morning in my time zone in the place that I am recording this. After, about 15 minutes of delays, because, of course, technology wants to cooperate with me about as much as a whale wants to cooperate with a whaling ship. So, but we're here. We're here for the first episode of Behind the Pen. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of proud of that name. And joining me today is Miss E.L. Lyons, who is the author of Starlight Jewel. If you would like to introduce yourself,
Yeah, I am E.L. Lyons, author of Starlight Jewel, and also Ostranger's Wrath.
which still waiting for that to come out. I want the paperback. Uh, if you'd like to go ahead and just give a brief overlight of Starlight Jewel, because if I do it, I'm going to probably give spoilers.
Yeah, so the premise of the book is that there's like Spriggans who are like tree people, loosely based on the Cornish lore, and then there's humans. And in like one city, there's hybrids of the two that help communicate and facilitate trade for them, and also keep peace so they don't kill each other. And Axley is one such hybrid. She is the main character, and there are, a genetic lottery basically of what traits each hybrid gets, and she got like pretty lucky, but she didn't get the memory thing, and she's got to protect her human half brother. So like her mother is a human, and also protect the world from him, because he has like a different kind of ability he got from being kind of like magicked up in the womb. And so the story is basically just her protecting her brother, and she's protecting him from both the humans and the hybrids because she is well aware that like her own people are not responsible enough for that. She's kind of morally gray, and has some problems, but overall she tries to do the right thing. She's just not very good at it, and she doesn't know what the right thing is.
Yeah, that's a pretty good way to put it. Don't let the this kind of morally gray fool you. No, you're talking about assassins and you're talking about thieves in the entire book. That is, gotta admit that one was one of the things that drew me into this thing. And I'm trying.
Might be a little bit of an understatement to say she's morally gray.
Well, no, I actually think that's a very good way to put it because throughout the book, she definitely tries to do what she believes is right. But she's not really sure what is right. But she's gonna try. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of intrigue, cloak-and-dagger, betrayal, magic, and the reason why I was talking to Miss Lyons in the beginning about this is because there was some comments of a heckler going that this book was filled with political intrigue. So I'm like, yeah, it looks like a good book. Let's go ahead and find out. And it's definitely not. It's there. There's no in real life politics that was in that book. But if looking at briefly at the book without giving too much spoilers or any spoilers, I hate spoilers. Uh, in Starlight Jewel, you'll have a lot of character growth. I don't know how you managed to get all of your characters that had a little bit of page time to have growth throughout it, but there really doesn't feel like a lot of side characters there. Like, how did you plan any of that?
Oh, I planned everything probably multiple times over because, and I'm definitely like a plotter, um, but I don't plot just one plot line. So I had like 10 different endings in mind. And so I plotted in such a way that one of those could work out, and when I got there, I could see which one. So I plotted the ending first, and then I plotted a bunch of random plot points that I wanted to happen. Um, and then as I got to the end, the first draft had a different ending, and it was the ending that I originally thought would work best. And then when I wrote the second draft, I added in King Henry, and I thought this ending no longer works as well. I'm gonna just pick one of the other endings, and so the mood of the ending was solid throughout all the endings that I had planned
Mm-hmm.
out. first ending, and then she was in another country. I don't want to spoil anything. Anyway, yeah.
So
So
that's
it was all planned, and the characters and their like sort of arcs and growth were all planned. Um, Editor's Weekly is my favorite review because it says that it has innumerable characters, and it does feel that way to me. It's a little overwhelming, and I was happy to kill people in book two.
well, you definitely did that. No, that's actually makes it even more impressive. I'm a pantser. I fly by the seat of my pants with a lot of stuff. I may do like somewhat of an outline of trying to get to. I cannot actually fathom the amount of work it would take to do all those over the character growth, the plot points for literally everything. Because if when you go into this book, for anyone who hasn't read it, you do have a ton of characters. You've got intersecting points. You have it's it's like looking at a freaking woven cloth and wondering how the heck you planned out every single string. Now, as far as the second point I was looking at, the grammar technical errors, there's not really. Did you go with editors on this, or was it just something you were editing? Or
I didn't have any like actual editor. So anybody who follows me on Twitter probably knows I'm a little bit of a nerd. Haven't been doing my grammar posts lately because I've just been overwhelmed with side projects because I have no idea how to manage my time.
fair, fair.
But I love grammar, and when I first started getting feedback for Starlight Jewel, I went to a beta read critique site. It's called thenextbigwriter.com. I'm not sure how I ended up there. I didn't know what beta readers were. So, like, my search terms in Google were probably from, like, the 1980s mindset of the internet and books. And so I ended up, this site looks like it's from the 80s. And
Yeah, that works out.
it had like a small paywall, and I thought, I should invest in this weird hobby that I have if I ever want to get better, because this book is literal trash. So I paid for that. I think it was like $20 or something. I'm not recommending this site right now.
Mm-hmm.
It did have a huge server crash, which
Oh,
lost
that's great.
a lot of stuff. That was a while ago. I think it was like a year ago now. It was a little bit traumatizing. But anyway, so it is a good site. I will say that lovely people on there. I don't know how many people stayed after the crash and how many jumped ship, but I had some beta read partners. Well, like, you exchange chapters, so it's not just like you find a beta reader. You have to read other people's stuff, and there's like a whole token point system.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is kind of a lot of work, because you're having to look at other people's stuff, and then you have people that you don't pick looking at your stuff. So I kind of had like a bunch of people on my first chapter, and it was incredibly discouraging. The first 4 or 5 comment sections that came in, because they were like complimenting it, and it was like, I just read this, I know it sucks. I don't want to hear that you think it's good. This is actually trash, and I need somebody to tell me how to fix it. And so then one commenter came in, and he gave like one compliment. He said he liked the opening lines because they reminded him of the Star Wars crawl, and which was what I was going for, was like the Star Wars Lord of the Rings introductory opening for those first few lines. And then the rest of the page was read. And he picked everything apart. He picked apart my grammar in ways that so like I had been editing people's essays for like a long time, like college essays, and I thought that meant that I knew about like fiction English. And there are so many rules that just don't apply in academia that do apply in fiction, and vice versa. It's not the same at all. You can't go from like academic editing, I learned, to fiction editing. So this guy clearly knew what he was doing, and he pointed out some things that actually made the first chapter not suck. got to the second chapter and said, I don't know if I'm gonna continue with this. And so I went through as fast as I could, and I made the most drastic changes I could possibly do based on the feedback he gave on the first chapter. And then I sent that, I told him, hey, I updated this. Would you mind giving it just one more look? And he saw the changes that I made, and he was like, oh, you really did a lot with that feedback. And so now we've been, chatting for, I don't know, like 5-6 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my writing mentor. He adopted me. He's my Gandalf. He's a touch older than me, but I'm his little Frodo apprentice, and I just appreciate it so much that he read that book like 10 times. I don't think it was quite 10. I think it might have been like 4 or 5.
But still, like, pretty extensive.
Some chapters did need like 20 reads, but yeah, he seriously just took so much time, and he's not an editor. He was an engineer. Now he's retired. But being an engineer, I think, gives him something of like a technical advantage. He has a way of thinking about the story elements and explaining them in a way that I haven't seen anything comparable from developmental editors that I've actually seen. I've suggested to him several times that he needs to just like start paid editing because he's actually very good, and he doesn't want to do that. But he spent an incredible amount of time working with me, and between the two of our communication styles, it was kind of a perfect fit because he was really good at explaining what was wrong, and I was really good at explaining why I wasn't having with certain parts of my book and what I thought was wrong, and then like we would go back and forth until we figured out what was actually wrong. Because that's one thing with like beta reading and editing is sometimes something's wrong and you think you know what it is, but you don't actually know what it is, and you have to interpret your beta reader feedback because often they don't actually know what it is. So it helps when you have kind of this back and forth dialogue and someone willing to really go through your book and pick it apart in a terrible way. So he taught me a lot, and I wrote the third draft, I think, while working with him, and changed even more things, and generally like learned how to rewrite a book. So I'd already written the book, but I had to learn how to like actually write a book well. And the thing is, when I put my book on this critique site, I had no intention to publish, and I didn't think Starlight Jewel was salvageable in any way. I just wanted to figure it out for the next book, because I had written so many bad books at this point. And so then, probably about 3/4 of the way through, just rewriting and editing continuously, going back over things, he suggested that maybe I should publish. And I was like, I don't know if we're gonna get there. Like, you haven't gotten to the big time skip yet. Like, I think you're being optimistic. You haven't even gotten to the end. And then, so finally, we did get to the end, and he did help me smooth over the transitions. And there are still a couple of readers who complain about the time skips.
Yeah.
But there's literally just a couple. Like, I think there's 2 people who didn't like the time skips, and I think they still gave the book 4 stars. So it wasn't like we made it a smaller issue, an issue that like readers like might not like, but they also wouldn't care about. And I think ADHD readers actually love it because they don't like to read about really long journeys.
That's fair. I know for me,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say that was my editing journey. Was just 2 really nerdy people going over the book for like 3 years together. Well, it might have been 2 years. I don't have a very good sense of time either. My bad.
Well, it definitely shows. It is a very smooth book. That's actually, for the writing smoothness, is one of the things I was looking at. And the time skip, as I mentioned in the review, it does throw you off momentarily, but then you come in and you're very quick to explain it on out, so it's not like the reader's going on for half a chapter. It's literally just next page, everything gets explained. So No, that is actually really well done, and kind of bleeds into the uniqueness of it, because holy hell, the plot twists! Like,
I did have fun with the plot twist.
I bet you did. I can imagine you sitting there cackling. But the amount of twists that are in this book, and again, there was two of them. There must have been probably like at least a dozen plot big twists that you're wondering if like someone is going to be thrown off for a second. Like, wait, did not see that coming. And I guessed one, maybe two of them. Like, how? How?
It was when I was writing. It was my biggest worry that I was making things too obvious. And for the beta readers and my writing mentor, one of the things they said was, "You need to hint more. You're not making it too obvious. It's not obvious at all."
No, no, it is not.
And I guess
There's
when you're
no
the
obviousness.
author, like you're reading, you already know what's going to happen. So obviously, it's obvious to me because I made it happen. But so it's hard to tell, what's going to be obvious or not to a reader. With that one plot twist that I think I asked you about, like I was like, I set up everything. I told the readers everything they need to put this together.
Well,
Like there is this hint and this hint and this hint, and like it's a big string of hints, and I was like,
I thought it
when
was no.
my writing mentor was telling me that I needed to add these things, I was like, there's no way that people aren't going to guess. There's no way. Nobody has guessed. Nobody has
No.
predicted this.
So one of the things that you did really well that I don't know if you realize is what you think to be a string of hints is you get one of the good things for anyone who again hasn't read this book. In the main character, you get a lot about her past, her motivations. It really does a good job of explaining out why she is the way she is. It's a lot of logical steps and a logical growth. So, without doing spoilers, which again, it's really hard on this one, but what you think a string of hints looks like a string of regrets and motivations. There is no guessing that happens.
Yeah, I know. It just seems like pointless backstory just so that you know the character, but I never did anything just so that you know the character. Like,
no, you didn't. Everything was linked. And then
it's a lot of fun to do that, though. When you're building the story, you just get to like plant little things in there, and wait until they come out and shock somebody like a haunted hallway.
Maybe it's a good thing that like we didn't do this till I finished the book, because there was several times in that book where I did want to murder you. Like, how could the author do this? There's several points there. But no, overall, and that's one of the things that I think people reading fiction don't fully appreciate is character deaths. Like you've mentioned before, you had a lot of fun killing off the characters. But you have instances where the character deaths are very pointless, they don't achieve a lot, or someone doesn't want to kill off any characters. And trying to find the balance to it, because there needs to be a little death in a book like this for a little realism. Nobody can write, it's not writing happily in the sunset, people have to die. But not overdoing it, you actually did a pretty damn good job. I did want to murder you, but you did a very damn good job.
Yeah, I did not want to, I'm not writing, like, for, shock value death. And I firmly believe that there is no named character that should be killed unless they have reached their full potential in a book. Like, because I hate it when I read that. There is one popular book that I DNF'd because of this issue, Shadow of the Gods.
I haven't
not
read
to spoil things for people who haven't read that, but I could not get over it. I could not get over it because I got attached to a character. And I would have been okay if this character had died in like a book and a half. When he had done something significant, or, if he had reached his potential as a character, but he did not reach his potential as a character. Like, you barely got to taste him as a character, and he was my favorite one. Sorry, spoilers. But
all we know, it's the
anyway.
guy that was your favorite one, so I think you're good as far as spoilers go. But
My favorite character just up and dies, and I did not feel emotionally impacted in the way that I wanted to. Because when I'm reading, I don't DNF books over character deaths very often, and it's not because it's devastating. It's because I didn't cry. It's because I didn't cry when I could have. You stole that from me as an author, and I wanted to cry, and you didn't let me have that. And I think that's unfair. So I try to never do that to anyone. You're not going to cry over any of the or all of the character deaths in a series.
Yeah.
But I think that there is a building up to emotional payoff. I think me as a reader and a lot of other readers, that emotional payoff to be devastation. And it might not happen in the first book because you haven't had the time to develop those characters to that point yet. But I do feel that if you kill them too early, then there's not enough devastation. But by book 2 or 3, in my opinion, a book is better if you kill somebody.
Yeah, honestly, have you ever read Brian Jacques' Redwall series?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it's been a long time. I was a child.
Yeah, well, honestly, I still read them. Pick one
good
up.
books. I remember them.
They really are.
Good books.
But what always struck me about that is there is a major character death in every single book. And when he did that, first I got mad, and then as I grew up I understood there is that emotional impact. There is almost a necessity when you're writing a violent book that someone major has to die. It's not all fun and games. And you've got the difference of opinions through authors. That, for anyone listening, that is an opinion. That is not something, hey, here's a writing rule. But it is better with death, but the death should always serve a point. It shouldn't be just Game of Thrones.
Killing people.
Game of Thrones. I will always have a pet peeve over that, because just okay, we're going to kill off everyone, and there's not going to be a lot of rhyme or reason. Then you've got, the crowning example of a good character death, in my opinion, is Boromir from Lord of the Rings. Because that was the catalyst for a lot of the growth that Aragorn went through. That was really the turning point for him. So, wow, we just went from, plot twists to deaths. That's...
Well, I think it is, and you brought up Redwall, so I'm going to go back to that.
Yeah.
And I think that there has been kind of a cleansing of children's books since that time, where things like death are too heavy for kids. And MT Zemny was talking about this recently. I think it was on either TikTok or Instagram. I don't know where she was talking about it, but where people think that they can't handle these types of heavy topics like death.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, they can't. That's why you give them the book that has the death in it.
Mm-hmm.
That was so important for my growth as a child, was to read about a bunch of people dying before people in my life actually started dying.
Yeah.
Because it's going to happen, and you don't want your first experience of it to be reality as opposed to fiction.
Yeah.
In fiction, you do have that distance between yourself and the book.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows you to process it more easily. When Sirius Black died, I cried in class. I think it was study period or something, and I cried for an hour, and then I was over it.
Mm-hmm.
And I processed it. And so, spoiler for anyone who hasn't read.
I think we're as far as Harry Potter goes. I think all the spoilers out there have already come out. Heck, I have.
Yeah. But for other books, I do remember as a kid, just having that. I read a lot, and I processed a lot of death through those books. And I just wonder how kids today are not going to be just emotionally devastated, and life hits them like a truck.
Or completely detached. If they've got the practice just being completely detached, they won't have that. They won't understand how to deal with grief.
Yeah, it seems emotionally unhealthy to me on so many levels. But then when you get older, you still kind of want and need that because you have that, like, I think your mind knows, like, this is
Mm-hmm.
a good way to continue practicing healthy emotions. Like, this is a good way to continue practicing grief and to continue practicing being devastated from a distance,
And
so that you can continue learning and growing and understanding how to process these complex emotions that happen in real life. But if you look at them in fiction, it is a lot better.
for
So I
anyone,
do make sure.
yeah. So just a quick interjection for anyone listening. The Redwall series was a young adult series. It wasn't like wasn't just
Not for children.
okay. We probably read it as children, but technically it's supposed to be young adult. It's supposed to be like early teen. Uh, I know I was reading it definitely before then, but no, I think it was intended as a young adult thing.
I feel like it was middle grade. There's no way it was middle grade. We're gonna have to look this up later.
I'll I'll actually look it up right now.
It's gotta be middle grade. I've been calling it middle grade and recommending it.
Which
Middle
age
grade.
group is Redwall? Oh no, you're right. 8 to 14.
I know my age.
Okay, yeah, you got it.
See, we read it in the right age range.
Yeah,
We're
there we
right.
go. But well, should we put
I've
like
never really
age
vibed with
to
YA.
23? Sorry, but I was saying we should think like 8 to mid 20s because I still enjoy those. You never really
They are
vibed
still
with what?
YA? Like, I
Oh.
can reread a middle grade. I haven't actually reread Redwall, but I do still, like, love the series, and I know I would love it if I reread it. But I've reread a couple of middle grade series, and they hold up. YA, on the other hand, does not hold up for me usually. Everything that I liked when I was a teenager, I, like, read, and I'm like, this genre is great for teenagers and
Terrible for everyone else.
young adults. And it doesn't hit the same. But for whatever reason, I still love middle grade. Like Kieran Larwood's Bodkin series. I don't know if you've read that. It's newer. It's not something that we would have read.
I
as
don't
kids.
think I've actually heard of that.
He published it like 6 years ago, and
Mhm.
like those books are really cool, and I love them. And I think it's because once you get into YA, this is like the drama period of books.
That's
like, middle
that's a
grade
good point.
lacks the melodrama, and adult lacks the melodrama. All the melodrama is in YA. I personally just am not a melodrama person.
No, I don't get me wrong. I like drama, but there is a big difference between drama, which is the build up, the tension, and melodrama, which is oh no, Jerry doesn't like me, but he likes Melinda. But then last point on the review is the original accusation against the book, which was political messages, which there wasn't. Like, you did a lot of politics, which were in world politics. I'm not sure where someone came through your book and was like, there's propaganda in here, because
they didn't actually read it, to be clear.
What?
I don't know how much of, like, I know you, like, I reposted their, like, vague tweet about me after our argument, but they I don't want anyone to go find them.
you're good, but
This is mostly just a funny situation more than anything else, just an angry internet person. But I had responded to somebody who said, like, they were concerned about authors who didn't talk about politics, like, that worried them. And
really?
I don't even remember what I said. It was just, like, kind of like my reason for not wanting to get involved with politics on Twitter.
And then just someone comes along and accuses your book?
Said, it was a little bit of a threat, so they came in and they were like, well, then what's that in your profile? I've got the Christian cross in my profile.
So that I actually did. I wanted to bring that up because something that you do that was excellent for your book was you put the dedication at the end. And if anyone reads like a medieval era type fantasy, you're going to have some aspect of like a church or something in there, because that is the entire history. That's where everything was set on. In the medieval period, the church was a huge part of people's lives. In Starlight Jewel, the church is referenced to. There's not a lot spoken about. There's actually not of the beliefs talked about. It's just something that was kind of there as a background fixture, which was pretty accurate for people. It's like it's there. They may not particularly care about it, so you did have that aspect in it. But then you had the dedication mentioning your beliefs at the end of the book, which made it so if someone came in and read it at the beginning, they could say, "Oh, this is a Christian book," and look it through it, very maybe, okay, well, won't bother on it. But when you put it at the end, people go through with an open mindset, see the dedication. Oh, okay. That's the only place where there could possibly be a political message, and you intentionally put it at the end so people can enjoy your book based on the book, not your beliefs. And
Yeah, I mean the epigraph is Christian. The epigraph is from the Bible, but there are a ton of fiction books that have epigraphs from the Bible because if you want to establish a theme early on, that's a familiar text that pretty much anybody can draw from. So even non-Christians will put epigraphs of scripture in there.
Yeah, and
because obviously if you're looking at the Psalms or other things, they're filled with just themes.
Yeah, and Mercedes Lackey. I've read a few of her books. Excellent author, but she's got a lot more of that. A lot more of the church being like a fixture in it. She actually did a mystery suspense fantasy, 420 Blackbirds, which is excellent. Like I absolutely loved it. But the church was a lot bigger, and it was there. But it was you have that, especially in medieval fantasy, because again, going back to the point of in medieval era, church was such a big thing. It was a common theme. It's something you find authors drawing a lot. It's adds to the world. It's not political. It's not a, hey, you need to believe this way. This is a fixture. And I'm not sure how people go that far away from the point. Sorry, just...
Yeah, no, and the Church of the Stars isn't based on, like, the Christian church in real life in any way. And you might find as you go through the series that it's not the best church around.
Yeah. And
people who are reading the sequel right now know that for sure. But it's, it's one of those things where, like, you can make a fictional religion and people will find a way to tie it to a real religion. And, like, even though there are so many fantasy elements in this book that just don't apply to the real world, like
there's
like you can't
tie it in with the actual church. It's but people are very hypersensitive to that, so that's one of the reasons I went through and looked at it. If you guys want a good book that doesn't have political messages but is still an intense read, like this is not something that is a light, I want to read a chapter here and there. You sit down, prepare to do nothing else for the rest of the day because the book's not going to let you. But you did a really good job with it, and you mentioned the sequel, and I know that I, as well as probably other people, would like to know a little bit more about it. Give us something.
Well, it's not gonna be in like Minolob as much. There's gonna be some of the book in Minolob, but most of the book is going to occur in Remora, which is like the desert part, which was an incredible challenge to write that I didn't realize. I've never written in the desert before, and I realized something about myself as a writer. I really like to have props, like landscape features and trees.
And that you don't have that in the desert.
Streams.
Yeah,
it's really... It feels like that white room syndrome issue a lot of times writing in the desert, I found, because there's nothing there. And so I really had to work super hard to create an aesthetic and an environment despite that, which, I mean, I was ripping my hair out at times. I watched, like, Lawrence of Arabia, like, four times, which... I don't think was helpful at all, but I just kept thinking maybe if I watch it again, I'll be inspired somehow. And yeah, so it was really hard. I will say that that was an unexpected challenge because when I was plotting the book, and, I mentioned that I plot a lot.
Mm-hmm.
When I was plotting the book, I was like, I'll just go to the desert with these people and it'll be really easy. It was not. It was, and like, it's one of those things where you don't realize until you start writing and you're like, this is the emptiest, saddest scene I've ever written. There's nothing in it. It's just sand everywhere.
Yeah, if you do a lot of world building, then I can see writing in the desert would be a cause for
It
insanity.
was awful. Yeah, but I will say, by the time I like finished with the edits, and I know I was like thinking that I would be done with the edits like 2 Novembers ago, which was unrealistic. Um, gotta give myself props for being optimistic.
Mm.
But by the time I did finish with the edits, I felt like, okay, I created this world anew in the desert. I successfully made the desert interesting. I never want to go to a real desert, but I made this desert cool.
There you go.
And I've incorporated. So one thing that I did at the beginning of the all tree plotting before I was even like when I was still doing test drafts of Starlight Jewel. Was plotting the different nationalities, and you'll see that there's more people in Starlight Jewel. There's the one dressmaker,
Mm-hmm.
and Darius, Wendy. So they're like the Remorians that you get introduced to. So it's not like they're coming out of nowhere. And I made sure to strongly establish just like a few key features of their culture with those three characters.
Mm-hmm.
And then I built on that. So when you're introducing like a whole new culture in a second book, I think it is important to make it feel connected to the last book, so it doesn't feel like it's just a completely different series coming out of nowhere. So I took the few things that I had established in the first book and built on those slowly. And there was like one flashback scene in book one with the basilisks. Which are not actually based entirely off basilisks. Nobody has noticed that yet, and that makes me disappointed in everybody's.
I'm sorry.
But besides the point, whatever, I have tons of Easter eggs in the book, and Andres Reeds, I don't know if you've seen him around, has actually been finding most of the Easter eggs, more of the Easter eggs than my beta readers and my other ARC readers, which has been a lot of fun. It makes me feel appreciated that people are, finding the 800 Easter eggs in there. I made the little Easter egg hunt that has like 5 things, but there's actually a lot.
How many Easter eggs did you
and
put
he
in there?
notices. Lot. I didn't count them when I was putting them in there. I would just be like writing, and like I would get to a certain plot point, and I'd be like, you know what, this is a good place to put in an Easter egg about, Greek mythology. and then I would just do that.
Now you
I was,
guys
like,
know.
creating some of the creatures.
Now you guys know there's Easter eggs in the book. I think that's about where we're going to leave it. We're going on this about 40 minutes, which is a little bit longer than I intended, but hey, it was fun. There's a lot of good information. And I warn you, if you kill Axel's apprentice, I will come through any screen and find you. Don't you dare.
No one is safe except Cletus. Cletus will always be safe.
Yeah,
he
that's fair.
Named dog.
He's a named dog. He has all the plot armor.
Yeah, and no one else though. No one else is safe. So I'm sorry to say I can't make any guarantees.
I'm worried because I got a lot of favorite characters. Now I'm just worried. All right, well, thank you very much for joining me and for bearing through the technical difficulties at the beginning of this. And
we both had them.
And we're
Babysat computers.
Almost forgot. Where can people find you and your book?
You can find my book on Amazon. It's on Kindle Unlimited and like regular Amazon if you want to buy it. If you hate Amazon, you can just message me on Twitter. I do just send people books. Like you can pay whatever you want for an ebook if you're getting it from me. Whether that's nothing or like 50 cents, it's probably going to be better than what Amazon gives me. or if
And
you
a
want
lot
to
of
buy a
subs as far as that
paperback
goes.
directly from me, just know that I do procrastinate about shipping because I hate going to the post office.
Yeah,
I'll get it to you eventually.
Do you have any other social medias besides Twitter that you want people to look at, or is that your main one?
I've been doing a lot of TikToking this week. I just started on it, but it's not what I thought. I'm actually enjoying myself over there. I thought it would be a bunch of teenagers or 20 somethings, and I would be like the old lady over there who's just talking about grammar. But I watched another interview with R.A. Sandpiper, and she gave some like really great advice, and also she's been doing this less time than me, and I think she's young. I don't know how old she is, but I did feel like, man, she is doing this so much better than me after just like a year of publishing. I really need to like start doing something more confidently a little bit. So I took some of the advice, like some of the practical advice she gave in that interview, and shockingly, it has worked, and people have enjoyed my weird new content. So that's as surprising to me as anyone. People actually laughed at my grammar joke this time, so that's fun.
You gotta have. That's, I think, what I found most about being an indie author is the posts that you might do about your book are going to be pretty close to what other people do just across. You gotta have a little uniqueness, you gotta have a little bit of a joke, and if you get people to laugh, they become interested.
Yes, 100%. There has never been any time I post about my book, it's like people who have already read it are interested in those posts because they like know the context, but other people are not. I've never had people interested in my book posts, even though I think they're kind of interesting. But I do notice that when I post a video that's funny, they will go back and watch my other videos about the book and then pick up the book. So they're like on Twitter, like things I posted like 4 days ago about the book, they'll go back and read that after seeing the funny video.
Draw them in, and then you can get the information.
It's more funny because my book is not very funny at all. All the humor is on the copyright page.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. But anyways, thank you for joining me and for subjecting yourself to a torturous interview. And everyone, look out for How do you pronounce Ostringer? I'm terrible at pronunciation. Ostringers.
So Ostringers is actually a real word. It's just one that nobody knows.
Yeah, no kidding. I've never heard of it before. But keep an eye out for Ostringer's Wrath, and thank you very much.